we're going to debate a couple of questions, and we're going to give 5 people in the center of the room the opportunity to talk about those issues, to debate amongst themselves, and then we'll get the audience involved, and they're sitting around the fishbowl, and we'll see what their thoughts are as well. The theme of the conference, the theme of our day today, is surviving in tough times. What do you think? Should we be looking at more collaboration, true collaboration? Is it possible?
So, unequivocally, absolutely, fundamentally, yes. You can't survive in this modern world without collaborating, without sharing resources, whether that's from an ecological perspective in terms of better, more efficient use of resources, whether that's about creating new intellectual property through shared ideas, shared experiences, things like that. And more effective use and more efficient use of the resources that we already have.
We have to collaborate.
We have to collaborate, we have to share all of resources.
Are we ready
we
to?
Shouldn't be, that's different.
Are we ready to really collaborate?
We need the infrastructure there to make it happen, we need the understanding to make it happen, and we need the cultural...
For me, in no small part, it's the desire to collaborate and to work together, and the actuality of having done that historically. Many of us in this room will have done it. For me, the problem really arises from the fact that who's driving this, and if it's coming from the organisations themselves, seeing those benefits and wanting to do it. All too often, and you've mentioned the economic downturn, which the last time I thought about this, I don't think the voluntary sector, the community sector was in any way responsible for triggering any of these events. And yet we're
swept into it.
Yeah, of course, and it impacts across every activity. But we've got fantastic track records within the sector of collaborating.
You think so?
Together. Yeah, I said, certainly speaking for Lasa. I mean, we when it was still unfashionable to be a collaborator and still had the taint of Nazi Germany attached to it, we were doing. So it's like we have always been at the forefront of thinking that was an important thing to do. What I mean about how it's being led is if it's being led by a funder that's saying, well, we're going to restrict how much money there is coming into the sector, we need you to get together and collaborate, that oftentimes there isn't sufficient recognition of the extra cost, the extra effort, and the work that goes into doing that. We're expected to just get on and do it. And it's continually having to cut our cloth according to the funders' behest. And and it's less and less money, doing more and more for less and less money. And our recent experience, certainly for an organisation like Lasa, is that's exactly what we're being called to do. And also another element within that is the move away from the recognition by many funders of grant income. We trust you to get on and do this. You know what you're doing. To contractual, we know better than you what's needed.
So the role of funders is changing and may actually damage collaboration.
Yeah. Collaboration for me is trust and shared values, that you're very clear with the people you're about to sit around the table with, why they want to collaborate with you and why it's important that you collaborate with them. And be very honest with yourself about those things. So, in private sector collaboration, where there's a shareholder return, do you really? Yes, because that's enough. But quite often the answer will be no, because actually the social benefit and the social return isn't there and it's not evident. But similarly, in collaborating with third sector partners, you've got to be clear about trust. You've got to be clear about what it is you're aiming to achieve and walk away from it early enough on. Don't make mistakes, because that's what damages our organisations in collaboration.
Julie, is that what happened? Do you think there's a good track record of that, of actually walking away when it doesn't make sense?
In recent years, from a personal basis, I'd have to say yes, Mark.
What does it take to make that happen? To walk away from a collaboration early enough so that you can go back to a table more effectively later to collaborate with the right person?
Yeah, absolutely.
What does that take?
It takes an enormous amount of courage, and sometimes it takes some internal, discipline and some fallout. You've got to be prepared to deal with conflict when you take those decisions, because quite often in our organisations, whether it's the staff, the board or the wider stakeholders group, there are different ambitions, different agendas to follow, and so you've got to get good at managing why decisions are taken. But I'm very clear, more and more so recently, and especially with the pressures that big funders are putting on us to collaborate, that quite often it's the wise thing to do.
I think for me the issue is often that what is their culture? What are their systems at the back end? Is there, when you get into the detail of them actually trying to work together, it doesn't happen at the top level that you work together. It happens at the grassroots level. That's where the work gets done. And you know, unless you've got a process and people that are really enthused at the grassroots level about working together, then, you know, there's always the potential for a lot of confusion about it, a lot of, well, I don't know what I'm doing, I don't know how I'm supposed to be involved in this, everything's changing around me and I just want to get on with my day job. And when I've been involved in collaborations, and I've been involved in a couple of big organisation mergers, that's where things have gone wrong. You know, the vision has been there at the top, the numbers have in theory added up at the top, but when it's translated down into the grassroots level, people haven't understood it, people haven't taken the time to explain it to them, even if it's been explained, it hasn't been explained well, and that's where it's fallen apart.